Today we're going to be taking a trip back in time. Normally Destiny 2 players talk about their favorite exotic weapons from Destiny 1 that they wish would come back, like the Icebreaker, No Land Beyond, Universal Remote, Necrochasm, or the Pocket Infinity. But what doesn't get talked about as much is the exotic armor that never returned to Destiny 2 outside of a few fan favorites like the Twilight Garrison and the Bones of Ao. So today we're going to be taking a deep dive into what exotic armor pieces from Destiny 1 never made it into Destiny 2. If this video ends up being helpful, make sure to hit the like button, and if you're new, go ahead and subscribe, and let's do this. Let's start off with the Titan exotics, and we'll go in order from year 1 to year 3. To start off, we have the Glass House from year 1. What made this exotic special was its exotic perk Bathed in Light, which allowed Blessings of Light and Weapons of Light to last longer. This was an awesome perk to have back in the day for Bubble Titans, especially if you ran Bastion on your subclass as well. Next we have the Helm of Inmost Light, and I know what most of you guys are thinking, this sounds familiar, and that's because it's very familiar. In Destiny 1 we had the Helm, and now in Destiny 2 we have the Heart of Inmost Light. In Destiny 1 this helmet had the exotic perk Recklessness, which gave you Death from Above and Headstrong for Fist of Havoc. Headstrong increased your leap distance for Fist of Havoc when sprinting, and think of Death from Above as a Thunder Crash before Thunder Crash. It really extended your range on who you could kill in Crucible. Also, this is back when Fist of Havoc was just a single smash. Onto the gauntlets we have the Ruin Wings. These gauntlets were really cool because their exotic perk Seeds of Ruin, which would cause heavy ammo drops to happen more frequently and contain more ammo. This was heavy ammo finder mods before they existed, of course. This was massive back then. Moving on to Taken King, we have the Empyrean Bellicose Helmet. It was pretty neat how this armor piece worked. This exotic perk was the Anti-Grav Thrusters, which allowed you to float in the air for a short period of time while aiming your weapons. Sounds familiar, Warlocks, right? Also, orbs collected while your super was full recharged your melee ability. You'll notice this trend in terms of Titan abilities being given away in Destiny 2. The final Titan helmet not brought back is called the Taikonaut, better known as the Astronaut Helmet. The exotic perk on the armor piece was called Air Traffic Control. This gave all rocket launchers tracking, and your radar would also remain visible while zooming in for heavy weapons, and finally, heavy ammo dropped more often. This exotic was awesome, and I would use it more if I didn't always have Twilight Garrison on. Another pair of Titan gauntlets that haven't returned are the Immolation Fists. The exotic perk for these is called Accelerant. It unlocks the subclass node Explosive Pyre for free. This means that enemies brought down by your hammers explode, chaining fiery solar damage to other enemies. Next we have my favorite armor piece of all time that hasn't returned, the Twilight Garrison. I always find it funny when I go back to Destiny 1 and newer players say, wait, Titans had Icarus Dash? And I have to say, no, Warlock's got Twilight Garrison. The exotic perk was called Tactical Air Support, and it allowed you to double press circle while airborne to evade. This, along with other things like shoulder charge and the introduction of swords, make Titan movement very, very fun. Before moving away from the Taken King, we need to go over the introduction of a totally new type of exotic armor piece, the exotic class items that were introduced during this period. Starting off with the Mark of the Sun Forged. This exotic class item was given when the Sunbreaker subclass for Titans was introduced in Taken King. The exotic perk is called Sun God. This perk upgraded your Sunbreaker subclass 25% faster, and your level would increase 10% faster. It also had the exotic class item perk that each exotic class item had that was called Life Exotic, which allowed it to be equipped with other exotic armor pieces at the same time. Every exotic class item from Destiny 1 will be mentioned in this video because exotic class items unfortunately never returned in Destiny 2. Next we have the faction exotic class items that could be obtained by ranking up your pledged faction to rank 25. This was a super cool addition to the Taken King. Starting off we had the Mark of Oblivion. The exotic perk on this class item was Pathfinder. It increased Dead Orbit reputation gains and added a Dead Orbit effect on spawn. Rank up packages were a great way to get materials, so these were really helpful and just flat out cool. Next we have the Mark of the Circle. This was the future War Cult mark, and the exotic perk was called Gladiator. It increased future War Cult reputation gains and added a future War Cult effect on spawn. I think you see the pattern here. Lastly, we had the Mark of the Executor. This was the New Monarchy mark, and the exotic perk was called Vanquisher. It increased New Monarchy reputation gains and added a New Monarchy effect on spawn as well. Finally, from Rise of Iron, we had the good old Thagamizers. These gauntlets for Titans had an exotic perk called 1-2 Punch. Hey, that sounds familiar. This unlocks the Striker subclass node Amplify for free. That also sounds familiar. Back in the day, Amplify allowed for kills with Stormfist to significantly reduce the cooldown of Fist of Havoc. You also gained an additional melee charge, which was really, really nice. That wraps up things for Titans. Moving on to the Hunters. Starting off in vanilla Destiny 1, we had the ATS-8 Arachnid. This creepy looking helmet had the exotic perk Arachnid Sensorium, which allowed for your golden gun to zoom in for more accuracy when aimed. Definitely made hitting your golden gun shots much easier back in the day. Next we have the Mask of the Third Man. I remember these being one of the first hunter exotics I ever got in vanilla. The exotic perk is Unstable Current, which caused the arc blade attacks to use less super energy. This allowed for longer blade dance supers where you could kill more targets. Staying with the vanilla hunter helmets, we have the Acleophage Symbiote. This disturbing looking helmet had the exotic perk Last Man Standing. This allowed Golden Gun to gain 1 additional shot per use. A lot of these exotics kind of just became normal subclass tree options in Destiny 2, which is why a lot of these exotics never returned. Moving on, we have my favorite Destiny 1 exotic in general, the Don't Touch Me gauntlets. I use these to solo Crota all the time. The exotic perk on these is the Defensive Reflex, which made it where if you take damage from a melee attack, you would briefly go invisible. Next, we have the Crest of Alpalupi, and I know a lot of newer hunters probably never knew hunters had this exotic. The exotic perk is called Keeper of the Pack, which allows you to revive fallen teammates faster, and they would also revive you faster as well. Your super also would spawn additional orbs for teammates, which is what we're more familiar with in Destiny 2. This exotic used to get a ton of use in Trials of Osiris to really take advantage of fast revives. One thing that I buy a lot of is unfortunately fast and greasy food. But no more of that, because today's sponsor is Factor. Factor makes life easy, where no longer do I need to either worry about A, going and getting fast food, but B, cooking too, because another thing that can take a lot of time is cooking, and I don't always have a lot of time to cook. So the really nice thing about Factor is they have meals like the jalapeno beef and mac and cheese, where all I need to do is throw it in the oven or throw it in the microwave, and then it's ready to go. So use my link in the description or go to go.factor75.com and use my code that you see here on the screen for 50% off your first box, and let's go eat some food together. Thank you so much to Factor for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. Next, we have another fan favorite exotic in Destiny 1 as a whole that didn't make a return in Destiny 2. We have the Bones of Ao. The exotic perk for this is called Not Bound by Law, which is an awesome name for an exotic perk that defies the laws of gravity. The perk upgrades double jump with an additional jump. This made hunter movement extremely fun in Destiny 1. Moving on to the Taken King, we have the Skyburner's Annex, the last of the non-returning hunter helmets. I always thought this helmet looked really cool, especially with the Taken armor. The exotic perk for this helmet is Versatile Shooter. This makes it so heavy weapon kills have a chance to create orbs. Orbs collected when your super is full have a chance to grant special ammo as well. This was a pretty cool way of synergizing heavy and special weapons together. It might not be strong if it was in Destiny 2, but it was definitely really fun in Destiny 1 and had a really cool visual appeal that made it worth it. Next, we have another spider-like hunter exotic. We have the ATS-8 Tarantella chest piece, the final of the hunter chest pieces that haven't returned. The exotic perk for this chest piece is called the Tarantella. What this does is it allows you to take reduced arc damage from minions of the darkness. Also, arc grenades and arc blade recharge faster. There's nothing too crazy about this chest piece, but it was a pretty cool option for Blade Dance hunters. Before moving on to the good old Warlocks, let's talk about the hunter class item exotics. Starting off, we have the Night Stalker Cloak, which hunters received when the Night Stalker subclass was introduced in Taken King. Once again, all of these hunter exotic class items had the exotic perk, the Life Exotic, where these cloaks could be equipped with other exotic armor pieces. The main exotic perk is called Nocturnal, which granted the Night Stalker subclass 25% faster subclass upgrades and made your level increase 10% faster. Moving on to the faction exotics, I feel like we can tie the 3 of these cloaks together now that we know how each of these works. We have the Cloak of Oblivion, the Cloak of the Rising, and the Chaos Cloak. The Cloak of Oblivion was the Dead Orbit Cloak, the Chaos Cloak was the Future War Cult Cloak, and the Cloak of Rising was the New Monarchy Cloak. These cloaks were all awesome and such a great way to extend the grind. Last but not least, it's time to talk about the Warlocks. Let's start off with Destiny 1 vanilla exotics. Let's begin with the Ram. The exotic perk for this exotic is called the Strength of the Ram. What this does is it increases your armor. Also, all Voidwalker melees trigger lifesteal on hits. For those that may have forgotten what lifesteal is, let's look back on it. Damaging an enemy with energy drain immediately restores a significant portion of your health. The Ram was also really strong, and I remember seeing it a bunch in Trials of Osiris back in the day. Next, we have the Obsidian Mind. The exotic perk on this Warlock helmet is called the Unsatiable, which allows for Nova Bomb kills to reduce the cooldown of your next Nova Bomb. We've seen this exotic's functionality essentially replaced with the Skull of Dire Ahamkara in Destiny 2. Nonetheless, this was a pretty cool exotic. Moving on, we have one of the most used Warlock exotics in Destiny 1, and that's the Light Beyond Nemesis. The exotic perk on this helmet is called Keeper of the Pack. What this does is it allows you to revive fallen teammates faster, they revive you faster, and then lastly, as you can guess, it spawns additional orbs for teammates upon your super use. This exotic was the equivalent of Crest of Alpalupi for the other characters in Destiny. This exotic was super strong, and I remember using it a bunch with self-res. It also got a lot of use in Trials of Osiris. Next, we have a funny quick honorable mention for Sunbreakers. These do exist in Destiny 2, but the name was changed to Sunbracers. Also, they slightly changed the exotic perk as well. In Destiny 1, it was called the Helium Cycle and it increased the duration of solar nades. In Destiny 2, the exotic perk was called the Helium Spirals. The perk increased the duration of solar grenades just like Destiny 1, however it also allows solar melee kills to grant unlimited solar grenade energy for a brief time. Moving on, we have the Purifier Robes. The exotic perk is called Burn Brighter. When you activated Radiance from death, aka self-resing, it would disorient nearby enemies. This was a fun exotic to use with self-res. Think of it as the Helm of Saint 14 of chess pieces for the Warlock. Next we have Voidfang Vestments. The name of the exotic perk gets straight to the point. Improved Axion Bolt. Yeah. As you can guess, this improves your Axion Bolt. Also, you respawn with full grenade energy. Axion Bolts were extremely strong in Destiny 1. I remember running away from these all the time, and dying a bunch too. Staying on vanilla chess pieces, we have the Heart of the Praxic Fire. The exotic perk is called Praise the Sun. What this does is it further decreases all ability cooldowns while Radiance is active. It's a really fun exotic to use with self-res. Moving on to the Taken King Warlock Exotics that didn't return, we have the Impossible Machines. The exotic perk is called Lightning Rod. This perk unlocks the Stormcaller subclass node Landfall for free, which means when you cast Storm Trace, it fires a bolt of lightning into the ground, creating a devastating shockwave under you. Landfall was really strong back in the day, and this was a really fun exotic to use when Stormcaller was first introduced in Taken King. To wrap things up, let's talk about the Warlock class exotics. By this point, you can guess what each of these exotics did, so we won't spend too much time on each of them. To start, we have the Stormcaller Bond. This bond operates exactly how the other two subclass exotic class items do, only this time it's for the Stormcaller subclass. Moving on, we have the 3 faction exotic class items. These, as I bet you already have assumed, operate exactly the way the other 2 classes do, so we'll just name all 3 of them. The Light Beyond is the Dead Orbit bond, the Circle of War is the Future War Cult bond, and the Age to Come is the New Monarchy bond. I really hope Bungie brings exotic class items back at some point, as I really see no reason not to. And with those bonds, that concludes our deep dive of all of the Destiny 1 exotic armor pieces that haven't returned in Destiny 2. My question to you is, what exotic armor piece that hasn't returned is your favorite, and what do you want to see return the most? Thanks for watching.